As of Tuesday afternoon, Eric Staal is officially retired as a Carolina Hurricane, and his number 12 might be joining some familiar faces in the rafters at PNC Arena.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. Usually 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes, but we are officially on our off season, so we're now down to 3 shows a week. But anywho, of all that, I am your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, along with my Chicago Wolves column, Wolves Weekly. I am the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun show for you guys on this Wednesday edition of the podcast, as we get to talk everything about Eric Staal. Tuesday afternoon, like I said, he retired with the Carolina Hurricanes, and there's going to be a lot more festivities for the former captain of the team later on this season. And we also get to talk about the Martin Necas extension that was announced on Monday. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So I know we were supposed to have a Monday episode for the Mailbag Monday, and I'm sorry if you're on social media, you saw why I didn't have a Monday show. Sorry to everyone who was looking forward to that. I have been dealing with some sciatic nerve issues the last couple of days. Just basically kind of put me down and out all of Monday. Walking was kind of hard. Mainly had to lay around trying to get that to stop. Tuesday, it's been a little bit better throughout Tuesday, but hopefully, Wednesday we get a little bit more through it as well and stuff like that. So sorry for not having a Monday episode out. So this week we are going to have a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday show. So just going to have to kind of pack into 3 straight days instead of like the every other day like we wanted to. Hopefully next week we'll be back to our normal Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. But yeah, sorry about that, guys. I know everyone was looking forward to the Monday mailbag, so I'll probably push that back to next Monday, just that way we have that Monday mailbag episode. But yeah, it's just one of those things where my body's like, hey, we're gonna throw a little wrench into your days off and what you really needed to do. So, but yeah, so like I said, sorry about that, but we will be back to our normal schedule next week. But this week we will have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday episodes with a special guest on Friday that I will announce later on today after the show for this Wednesday edition drops. But anywho, so it's funny. Earlier Tuesday, the Carolina Hurricanes announced that Eric Staal will forever be a Carolina Hurricane, because initially it was announced that no one will wear number 12 again. Now it made you wonder, are you talking jersey retirement or the fact that what's going to happen with all of that? And it did come out that Eric Staal did sign a 1-day contract with the Carolina Hurricanes, basically making him retire as a Carolina Hurricane. But also on top of that, and what's really cool what the team did was they put out a video, like almost a 5-minute video of Eric jumping on a Zoom call with Eric Tulsky, Mike Sandheim, Rod Brind'amour, and a lot of guys from the Hurricanes front office and the coaching staff. And, basically talk about like how, they were excited for Eric to retire as a Carolina Hurricane, as he should. Played over 900 games, was drafted by the team as well. And obviously, a leader in almost pretty much every category since the Hurricanes got relocated. And hands in the 1-day contract. But surprisingly enough, in that 1-day contract, they even surprised him by saying that him and his family have to come down to Raleigh to celebrate him and the fact that his number 12 is going to be retired. And it's going to be alongside former teammates in 2006 Stanley Cup champions in Rod Brind'amour and Glenn Wesley, along with, of course, Ron Francis, the Hall of Famer. And it was just so cool seeing how his reaction was, the fact that he was just so caught off guard by it. And of course, he's really humble, and just goes to show how great this organization is, for the fact that they were just waiting for Eric to retire, for them to be like, all right, you're retired, now we're going to retire your number. So it seems like it was going to happen. And of course, thanks to Casey Mitz on Twitter, she even said that they're talking about trying to push for the retirement for Eric Staal's number. And of course, the person who was behind it all was, not surprisingly enough, Rod Brind'amour. Of course, Rod was going to push for former teammates and someone who's like, yeah, Eric, for what Eric has done for the organization, which we'll talk about Eric's legacy in segment 2, is the fact that a guy like him has to get his number retired, and it just makes sense to do so. So that's just really awesome to see that. Even Eric was surprised, but it's so cool to see that the guy who was basically played 12 seasons in Carolina, over 900 games, has basically is number one in all the record books in terms of the franchise, former captain, Stanley Cup winner, and deservedly so for his number to get retired and go up along with all the other greats as well. So it's not been confirmed when his jersey retirement is going to happen, but we know it is going to happen, and I know that is going to be a must-go-to event for any Hurricanes fan, and that's going to be an awesome time just be able to see, because that's our first jersey retirement since 2011, and that's when Rod Brind'amour got his number retired. So it's been 13 seasons since we saw someone's number get retired, and now it's going to be number 12 in Eric Staal. So you're talking 3 guys from the 06 team, they're going to have their numbers retired. And you're talking about a captain who was there for the team for a long time, a guy who played pretty much his entire career in Carolina. So it's really awesome to see that Eric's going to get that number retired. And even on the announcement of his number getting retired, Eric Staal said, "From the time I arrived in Raleigh at 18 years old and throughout my 12 years there, I felt the love and support of the fans and organization in a way that will always feel special to me. There was no doubt in my mind that when it became time to hang up my skates, I would want to retire as a Carolina Hurricane. To now also know that the team is retiring my number 12 is truly humbling, and I'm extremely grateful and honored." And that's just, it goes to show who a person that Eric Staal is, and the fact that the team, really appreciates everything he's done. The fact that he's humble to know that the Hurricanes value him so much that the minute he retires, it's like, okay, your number is going to get retired too, and no one's going to touch 12 ever again. No one's really worn 12 since Eric got traded away, but now it's even more so the fact that number 12 is never getting retired. And Staal even said more to this as well. Eric even wanted to say, "I want to thank my family, former teammates, coaches, and staff members who played a role in helping me live my dream playing in the NHL. I will forever treasure the memories and friendships made during my 18 years in the world's best league." So you're talking 12 of the 18 seasons he was a Carolina Hurricane, and it's just like we'll talk about the legacy statements, just how much he's impacted this franchise. And the cool thing too is Eric Tulsky even said too that, Eric Tulsky, talking about Eric Staal, Eric is uniquely central figure in a franchise history. Throughout his time in the Triangle, he has made an immeasurable impact on his teammates, the organization, and the community. We look forward to raising number 12 to the rafters and celebrating the career of a man who has meant so much to the hockey fans in North Carolina. So you talk about the Staal, the Staal Foundation and all that. So even on and off the ice, Eric Staal has done a lot, in the Carolina area. And just now that you get to see that his number, he'll ever be memorialized in Carolina Hurricanes lore, and the fact that now you're looking at a guy who's going to have his number retired, and that's going to be our 4th one. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with, do you see Cam Ward's number eventually getting retired as well? Because he is in the Hall of Fame, but no one's worn 30 since Cam was there. So it makes you wonder if it's just going to be one of those things where it's just no one's going to touch 30, or do we see Cam's number get retired at some point? But it's really cool to see, we got another one retiring finally. It's going to be number 12. Do we see possibly Jordan Staal's number getting retired? Do we see 11 next to the 12? Who really knows? But I know I'm looking forward to that celebration when Eric Staal's number goes up to the rafters. And it makes you wonder of who that's going to be against, because, he also played, for the New York Rangers for 20 games, also played with the Sabres, the Canadians, and along with the Florida Panthers. And he did spend a lot of time with the Minnesota Wild. So I would like to see maybe they have them do against the Minnesota Wild, because that was the second most games he ever played with another franchise was Minnesota. So I'm kind of curious to see if maybe that will be the game where he played with a lot of other organizations, but Minnesota is probably the second. It's the second longest tenured one, and the one that was, every other one was under 100 games, but his two longest stints were with Minnesota and Carolina. So that'll be very interesting to see what goes on with that. So we are going to move on to, what the legacy that Eric Staal left, all the teams he played for, how many games, and just looking at his records of what he did in Carolina and all that. So we'll talk about that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. All right, guys, we got to talk about Gametime. And with Gametime, they are the authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier, just like a normal fastball in the game of Major League Baseball. Prices at the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views for your seat, and their best lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The thing I like about the Gametime app is the fact, like I said, you get your last-minute tickets with really great flash deals and zone deals as well, and their view from Seat Finder is absolutely amazing. So you know what you're looking at before you even get to the venue itself. With their last-minute deals, you get saved up to 60% off when buying last-minute tickets, and not just for sports, but you also get it for concerts, comedy, theaters, and so much more. With their flash deals, you could save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And if you want to have more savings, we got to check out their zone deals, because you could save even more when you choose the section, but you let the Gametime app choose the seat for you. And speaking of seats, this is the feature that I really like about the app, is the fact that you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app itself before you even buy. So you don't even have to worry about obstructed views, bad angles, all that. You can take all that guesswork out because you get to see your seat in the app before you buy, so you don't have to worry about all those possibilities. So with that being said, it's easy just to take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. If you download the Gametime app, make sure to create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. It's like I said at the end of segment 1, we're not going to talk about the legacy that Eric Staal has left, not just with the Carolina Hurricanes, but also what he's done in the league as well. 18 seasons, 12 of them was in Carolina. So overall, he played 909 games with the Carolina Hurricanes, 311 with the Minnesota Wild, 72 with the Florida Panthers, 32 with the Buffalo Sabres, 21 games with the Montreal Canadiens, and 20 games with the New York Rangers for a total of 1,365 NHL games. And it's cool to see that of all the teams, for him to retire, and of course it has to be the Carolina Hurricanes. It goes without saying that it has to be him. Now, this is really cool, and I'm glad Walt Ruff was able to put this up. So this is where Eric Staal ranks all time in Carolina Hurricanes stats, and this is just talking about the record book from the team being relocated. So I know when I did the all-time captains list, I know some people are really lucky how Ron Francis not up there in certain areas and all this other stuff, and because you look at a lot of Ron Francis's stats was when he was with the Hartford Whalers really early on in his career. And, of course, all those numbers are going to get transferred over. But if you're just talking straight-up Hurricanes, Ron Francis only played 5 2/3 seasons with the team, but you have guys like Eric Staal and all that play 12 seasons, and even Jordan's played 12. He's going to, after his 4 years, his current 4-year contract's done, you're talking 16 seasons with the Hurricanes. And where Eric is located all time, you're talking first in goals with 322, first in assists with 453, obviously, he's first in points with 775, 909 games played, 105 power play goals, 252 power play points, and 13 hat tricks. Now, we all know that Sebastian Aho's got an 8-year contract that's going to start soon, and it's going to make you wonder, how many of these could Sebastian Aho break? I think there's going to be a couple that he can get to. Maybe he's going to pass, Eric on some of these. But that is a lot of firsts for Eric Staal to be where he's at in goals, assists, points, games played, power play goals, power play points, and hat tricks. That is a lot of stats for a guy who played 12 seasons. Of course, when you look at just the longevity of a lot of Hurricanes players, Jacob Slavin's he's creeping up to to double-digit years. Like I said, his brother Jordan, he just played his 12th season. Cam Ward played 13. So there's not a lot of guys who really played long careers in Carolina. Like Rod Brind'amour had 10 seasons. It's one of those things where it's a lot of guys don't usually hit 10 years in Carolina. And if they do, you're looking at 2 Stahls, a Ward, a Brind'amour. Eventually, it's going to be it's going to be a Jacob Slavin and stuff like that very soon. And of course, it's going to be a Sebastian Aho, hopefully Andrei Svechnikov, hopefully Seth Jarvis, and stuff like that. But it just goes to show who Eric Staal is and just the legacy that he left. Of course, we got to talk about the Staal Family Foundation and what they do. But you're looking at a guy who's put up numbers his entire career. And I know towards the end of his career, a lot of people, in his time in Carolina, a lot of people weren't really happy with him and stuff like that just because of just how the team was performing. But it's one of those, he kind of did slow down a little bit for the most part. But overall, though, I mean, nothing really Eric could do when he was basically the guy for the Hurricanes for a good majority of his time after, he took over the captaincy from Rod Brind'amour. Went through a few of the Kirk Muller seasons, went through like one season with, with the other coach we really don't want to talk about, but it's just, it's a thing where it's where the team was at the time. Yeah, it stinks because you want Eric to do so much, but he was basically carrying the team and it showed a lot, and it is what it is. But it's now for the fact that you get to honor a guy who did a lot for the franchise. Like I said, off ice, he did a lot for the community even before all the stuff that's going on now with what more guys are doing with, the community around the team, what the team has been doing as well. So Eric's been doing it from pretty much since day one, and the fact that he got drafted by the team, spent a good majority of his career in Carolina. And like I said, you look at all those where he's ranked all time in the franchise since getting relocated. There's no other guy that should have his number retired more so than Eric Staal, just for the fact that he's first in all these categories. And it's great to see that he's finally getting to be honored and supported by the fans and the franchise one more time, and just being able to see another number get lifted to the rafters with a all-time Carolina Hurricane. Will he be a Hall of Famer? I would assume so. I would think so, for the fact that you're talking over 1,300 games, won a Stanley Cup. He's first in a lot of categories with the franchise itself. I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Staal does get a nod to the Hall of Fame. I think he deserves to get in there more than anything. So do we see it happening? I could see it. I could see Eric Staal getting into the Hall of Fame for sure. And it just goes in, like I said, you're getting his number retired. You see where his stats are at. He's got the credentials of what just being someone who was able to play so many games, get all these points just to see where he's at overall in his career. Because you're talking 1,063 points in 1,365 games. Yes, he was a minus 83, but I mean, what can you really do about that, though? But 72 game-winning goals. He was a one-time All-Star, but at this point, I don't think All-Stars really matter at that point of like what goes on with all that. But it's just, you're talking a career where even with the Minnesota Wild, Eric Staal had 240 points in 311 games, 111 goals, 129 assists. It was a +9 for his career there. He was a -58 with the Hurricanes, of course. A lot of that came really late towards, through a lot of really bad seasons with the Hurricanes, and even a really not so great 2020-21 season with Buffalo and Montreal. It was a -30. But overall, I mean, what more can you really say about how good of a player that Eric Staal was? 240 points in 311 games is really good for the Minnesota Wild. You're talking 4 years there, 12 with the Canes, then, of course, just a handful here and there with a bunch of other teams. But it's crazy to think that he didn't get anywhere closer in terms of the Hart votes. He finished 4th for the Hart voting in the Cup seat in the Cup year. I don't know how you don't do it with a 100-point season and all that, but yeah, it just Selke's was never really close. Hart's not really there either. So it's just interesting the fact that you look at a career like Eric Staal, you figure he would have more, individual awards. But you're talking Carolina, and just where at that time you're not seeing, and even now you can still see that there's a little bit of like it's Carolina. I mean, luckily some guys are winning awards now, but I think if you're talking like Eric Staal, I think he should have gotten at least a couple awards for what he did, especially in that Cup run. But yeah, it is what it is. What can you do about that now? But he is a Stanley Cup winner, and now he's going to get his number retired, and he's leaving a legacy that I'm really curious to see how many guys are going to catch these records and see do we see him go into second? Do we see him go into third in some of these? Who really knows? But it's just really awesome the fact that we were able to see Eric Staal get drafted, go win a Stanley Cup, play most of his career in Carolina, and now he's come back, got that one-day contract done, and now he's officially retiring as a Hurricane, and his number at some point this season is going to get retired. But you know what? If you're on the YouTube side of things, go in the comments section. Let me know, what was your favorite Eric Staal moment? And I'm going to preference this as you cannot pick when they won the Stanley Cup. You got to give me an Eric Staal moment that you love the most out of his time with the Carolina Hurricanes. Like I said, if you're on YouTube, make sure to go to the comments and leave your favorite Eric Staal memory, and even on socials too. I'll let you know where to drop on the socials of what your favorite Eric Staal moment is as well. So that's all we're going to talk. That's it for the Eric Staal part of the show. We are going to talk about Martin Necas and his extension that he got on Monday with the Carolina Hurricanes, ending that whole saga of what's going on with him. And we'll get to that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to a segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So now we get to move on to the portion of the show where we get to talk about Martin Necas and his contract extension that he got with the Carolina Hurricanes. So back on Monday, he did sign an extension with the team that is going to be for $6.5 million for over 2 seasons, which would be $13 million overall. It's a 2-year deal, and he will become an unrestricted free agent after the 2025-26 season at the age of 27, which a lot of people did note that you're going into a UFA year at 27 off of another bridge deal, because his last contract was a 3-year, $3 million per season. And now you're looking at 2 years at 6.5. Yes, he got the money that he wanted because he was requesting between 6 and 7. He got 6.5. I'm assuming the 2 years is just because of the fact that he didn't want to do a long-term contract, and maybe he wants to try and go into UFA status when it's all said and done. That will be a very interesting caveat to how that's going to play out as well. And the good thing too is about the contract in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes side of thing is there is no movement clauses. There's no trade clauses as well. This is a straight open up contract that the Hurricanes can go and just trade him, and he can't say no to it. Because I know there were some deals, during the draft where it was probably the Columbus Blue Jackets. He said no. Possibly go to the Jets. He said no. Even the Buffalo Sabres, he said no. Because I'm assuming he probably didn't want to sign an extension there. So a lot of these deals kind of fell through. Because he did have some leverage. He was an RFA, and a team's not going to go trade all these assets away if they don't know they're going to get him to sign a contract that's going to be long term. So now the fact that you got him pen to paper, what his AAV is. Now some teams going to be like, maybe we can go get him. Are we talking at the trade deadline this upcoming season? Or are we talking next offseason when he has a year left? And do you take on a $6.5 million contract? Will it be trade deadline in the March of 2026, and do you get half retained for $3.25 million? Or like I said, even next offseason, you can still get him at 3.25, and the Hurricanes just have to eat half of it for a season. Who really knows? And that's only if the Hurricanes do decide to trade him, if they don't think they're going to get him to extend for another contract. He is going to be 27 when this contract does end. For me, it's not a bad deal. It's a short-term deal. You kind of give him the money that he wants, but you do have the flexibility of you can trade him when you want to, and you don't have to worry about him saying no to it. there's going to be some team that's going to want that $6.5 million contract, even if it's for 1 year. At least you know what you're going to get out of it. Money wise, it's not terrible. It does make things more interesting now in terms of you're looking at the Carolina Hurricanes, is because now when you look at their overall AAV, you're looking at to where now as going to you're at $6.44 million, and you still have Seth Jarvis to take care of too. He's the only guy that's currently not signed with the Hurricanes. So now are you looking at a short-term deal with maybe $6 million? Maybe do you do it 4.5 to 5? I guess it all depends on what they want to do with that. I could see it being $6 million for 3 years, maybe 6 for 4. Who really knows? But it's just one of those things where what are you looking at in terms of money wise if you're the Carolina Hurricanes? And of course, in terms of Puckpedia, they have some guys up that probably aren't going to be with the Hurricanes, like a Bradley Nadeau and Scott Morrow and all that. I can kind of see them being in Chicago next year. So you're looking at maybe $8.5 million of cap space, where if you want to give them an 8x5 or a 3x8, it's a possibility too. I could see them go for a 5-year deal at $8 million or 6 years at $8 million. Who really knows? You could still give them the 8x8. That's like I said, you got to drop some contracts off and stuff like that. So who really knows what's going to work out with that? But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that stick at the 6.44. You could still get a $6 million contract done between 3 to 5 years. Who really knows? Like I said with Necas, the only way you possibly trade him is if you know you're not going to keep him after the second year. So maybe next offseason is do you come back and be like, hey, do you want to stay? Are you willing to stay and stuff like that? And if he says no, then it's like, okay, then maybe we start looking at a trade to maybe send you somewhere else so you can get some assets back, because you really don't want to go into a situation like we were with Jay Gensel, where it's like he's not going to resign, and now you're giving away his UFA rights and getting almost nothing back for it. Where if it's, let's say we're at this time, summer of 25, and you know he's not coming back, well, you have a full year to go and trade his 1 year away. And there's, like I said, there's some team that's going to take his 6.5. I wouldn't be surprised if someone did. And then maybe you could get more assets back. And like I said, that's just the caveat of if Martin Necas says, no, I'm not going to stay in Carolina, I just want to get my money. So that's a possibility. But if in terms of looking at this season, now it's like, okay, you wanted the money. We gave you the money. Now you got to go out and prove yourself. Now it's another 2-year prove-it deal. Now it's like, are we going to get the 71-point season that we got from Martin Necas, or are we going back into the 40s again? Where it's kind of like, something's there, but why is he not tapping into it? And you really got to hope he shows up in the playoffs, because he's good in the regular season, but in the playoffs, you kind of wish you could see more out of the guy. And now makes you wonder too for the Hurricanes, do you give him the opportunity to go back to power play 1 again? Because the whole thing with that was you needed to get some guys who know how to enter the zone, and that's what you have with Sebastian Aho on PP1, and you wanted to split them up to put Martin Necas on the power play 2 and be that guy. But obviously he didn't want to be on power play 2. He wants to be on PP1. So do you put Necas and Aho back together and just kind of figure it out that way? Or do you kind of make it an even split of time? Does both units get a minute apiece on the power play? Center, I still don't see the Hurricanes putting him as a center. His faceoff percentage is in the 30s. Yeah, you could learn from guys like Jordan Staal and Rod Brind'amour, but Martin Necas isn't a guy who's going to go play that two-way center who's defensively minded, like you see with what Rod Brind'amour wants from his centers. Jordan Stahl's really good at it. Sebastian Aho's gotten a lot better at it over the years. I think Jesperi Kotkaniemi is still working on his game, and I think that's getting somewhat-ish better. Jack Drury took a big step last year. He played fourth-line center pretty much almost the entire season, and then became the second-line center in the playoffs and got 5 points in 11 games. You brought in Jack Roslovic for a 1-year deal, and he's a pretty decent two-way guy, so it's – unless he decides to really buy into the defensive mindedness of what Rod Brind'amour wants, I don't see Martin Necas becoming a center for the Hurricanes. It's going to be more of maybe he's going to get more ice time, maybe a PP1. Do you see him getting, maybe he's on power play 2 and then just up the minutes a little bit? Center, like I said, I just don't see the center's position working out for him. I just don't really see that happening, honestly. But overall, I think it's a pretty decent deal. There, you could still be able to move him to wherever you want because there's no trade clauses. AAV is not terrible because there's some team that's going to be willing to take that 6.5. You really have to move it if he's not going to stay in Carolina. Now it's just kind of like, all right, you wanted it, you got it, now go prove it. And I'm curious to see how the Hurricanes are going to utilize him as well. But let me know in the comments what you think. How do you feel about the Martin Necas deal? Do you like the AAV? Do you like the term? Do you see him playing all 2 years of his contract in Carolina, or we think it's going to be a next offseason if you know that he's not going to come back after the 25-26 season? Do you see possibly a trade in the summer, or do you see a deadline move in March of 26? So let me know in the comments what you think about all of that. But that will wrap up a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thank you to everyone who sent well wishes when I dropped the post about not being able to do a show on Monday. Thank you to all that. I really appreciate everyone. Like I said, I'm getting somewhat better, just still slowly trying to go through the sciatic nerve and the back and hip pain and all that, but hopefully we should be good to go here over the next few days. So if you want to keep up with me and anything that's going on with the Carolina Hurricanes, you can follow me at OneTrueZach on X. You can follow the podcast at LO_Hurricanes. If you click the link tree in my bio, you can check out, or you can find all my articles at the Hockey Writers. You can also check out my other podcast, the Searchcast. There's links to where you can watch and listen to that show. And for this show, there's a link to where you can listen to the show on all podcast platforms. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read on the podcast. On the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, click the thumbs up button, let me know if you like the show. Also, in the comment section, let me know what you think about Eric Staal retiring. What's your favorite memory of him? What do you think about the Martin Necas deal and all that good stuff? Make sure to share the YouTube channel with everyone that you know, so they become everydayers just like you. Because we are over 920 subscribers and we are on the road to 1,000. And if we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. But like I said, I hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Wednesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.